if nothing you're doing today connects to the longer plan, like you don't really have a plan. Like you might have a goal, but you don't have a plan. If you're waking up today and you don't know what to do, again, you don't have a plan.
You know what always surprises me is when I check some of the comments, I'll get comments asking who one of us is. So once again, my name's DJ Payne One. I'm joined over here by Damien Ritter, over here by Erinn Knight. We are the MEC podcast. None of us are guests. None of us are hosts. We're all, it's like triplet co-hosts. That's really what it is. So appreciate you tuning in. Another thing that I hear often that surprises me too is how many artists just haven't dropped their music and how many artists are just sitting on their music. How many producers are asking, well, can I put my beats on Spotify even if I'm leasing them? Yes. And you should try different avenues because you never know what's going to work for you. So in order to help you do that, we want to help you get all your music on these platforms for free. Go to tolost.com. Use the code MEC. There was an article that dropped recently talking about Too Lost and why so many artists are switching over. I'm sure Kanye West switching to Too Lost didn't hurt. All publicity is good publicity. Some instances, but tolost.com. Use the code MEC for 3 free months of premium music distribution. Get your songs that are just sitting on your hard drive. Get your beats that are just sitting on your hard drive. Put them on Apple Music, put them on Spotify. These are all the platforms, Tidal, Amazon. See what works. How's everyone? You have something to say about Too Lost, Dan? I know you do.
No. I just definitely don't agree that all publicity is good publicity. So I'm not in that camp. But I understand why some people might not be familiar with us because our podcast isn't super big yet. Hopefully there's continued growth. So yeah, maybe we should reintroduce ourselves every single time. I know that's part of why I want to continue to share some wins. So for this week, what wins do you got for us, Erinn?
That's true. It's a continuous reintroduction. I agree with that. Wins for this week for me is I got another grant. So the grant programming, you know what I'm saying? The grant cohort started yesterday. And it's really cool. Shout out to Black Girl Ventures. So I just got another grant through them, and it's wild because like they informed me like 2 weeks ago that I got the grant. I signed the paperwork last week, and then we start this week. Next week we get our first check, and I'm like, whoa, this was fast. So that feels really good. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. If you are a creative, if you are an artist, even if you're an executive, apply for the grants. Executives, especially women, there's things like Key Change. That's more of a cohort program, but there is money involved with it. Black Girl Ventures takes creative entrepreneurs, but for artists, there's so many. DigiLock post them, your local city municipalities. Like if you're a muralist, they usually have like mural grants. If like the city of Atlanta is paying people to make a theme song for MARTA right now. So it's like there's opportunities for you to make money and not be so frustrated with the exchange between fans or amassing a community. You could be generating revenue from your art even if you don't have any fans right now.
It's the value of information. You got to stay tapped in. Payne, win from the past week. What you got?
I feel like my YouTube channel is finally doing decently, and I'll share what the difference was because it's really silly. I felt like for a long time, I just wasn't reaching my followers, and then I had a string of success with videos using one tool, and it's one specific free tool called vidIQ, but it's a very specific feature of vidIQ. Because the other stuff, the keyword research tool wasn't working well for me. And this just started working well for me. And so I feel like finally the content that I make every single week that I spend so much time on that I was frustrated seeing, only 1,500 views when I have 100, damn near 160,000 subscribers on. It's more validating. So I'm like, cool. Even at this stage in the game, I've been on YouTube for a while, been in the music business for a while. There's still a lot of room for growth, a lot.
Yeah, there's definitely still a lot of room for growth on YouTube. YouTube is making some changes, and it's only growing. It's on. I think I mentioned this stat before, but just on television, YouTube now kind of, I don't say dominates streaming, but it's 10% of what's watched on TV is coming through YouTube. I even saw that Netflix is now going to be leaning into podcasts. At first, they were not fans of podcasts. I don't think they felt like it was premium enough content, but they've seen the power of podcasts and the watch time associated with it, so they're tapping in. My win is I interviewed Six, Logic's longtime producer for the Independent Living podcast. This was the first producer conversation that I had. It was super dope. I think one thing to kind of take away from it is, they obviously, him and Logic had a lot of success. Six is just now releasing a debut album. And a lot of people get comfortable in their success, and it delays some of the longer term goals that they have for themselves. That's something that you got to continue to check yourself about. Once you do have success, I've seen that so much. People say they have a certain long term goal, but they start getting a little bit of success and it derails that long-term goal because they start taking their foot off the gas. And he was honest about that. And that's why it's taken him so long to put out this album. He's putting it out through Two Loss. It's got a bunch of dope features. He dropped a song last week called Why Should I, featuring Drum, Juicy J, and Guap. It's a dope song. And then other than that, my wife decided to make public that we're having a child this year. So we're due in June. So I'm still hoping and praying that all goes well with that. Appreciate all the love, man. As much as negative as social media can be, I've experienced both extremes. Just checking my IG this morning, like it's just so much love, and I appreciate everybody that has pressed like or said something super positive, because I've definitely been down on social media. Social media to me has been a net negative at this point. I used to say it was a net positive. But maybe that's a debate for another time. But let's get this going. I know we're gonna kick it off with Doechii. I believe No Labels Necessary posted this clip. I'm not sure where the original clip was, but let's see what she had to say about her 10-year plan.
Some pieces of advice that I would give, like independent artists that are looking to come into the industry, is one, knowing exactly what they want. I have a 10-year plan for myself on where I want to be, what my eras are going to look like down to the color palette. And I know exactly where and what I want in my sound in my next upcoming albums. So know what you want. You need to understand and start serving people and understand how to be a proper leader, be on top of your shit, be a good artist, and just relax.
Boom.
I like the just relax part, especially to cap it all off, because some people are not relaxed,
and some people are too relaxed.
Yeah.
Erinn, what do you think of her stance and her 10-year plan?
And I say this with zero shade. I was surprised how many people shared the clip. I was like, because I felt like the information was practical and straightforward. And a lot of times the clips will blow up and it's like, it says something that's like jarring or shocking or a little bit like leaning to a side, but I was like, oh, she's talking about good business, right? And consistency. She said, I have a 10-year plan already. I've picked out all these things. And, to some creative minds, they may be like, well, you're limiting your freedom. I think the beauty of parameters and boundaries and setting goals and plans is that you do have parameters that you live by. And within those bounds, you're like, okay, I may go in a whole different direction. Like for people who know the story of her album, or the mixtape technically that dropped and won, or EP and won a Grammy, is that she made it and released it in like 10 weeks. But she had been working on an album for, I think, almost 2 years, or now it's like at the 2-year mark. So that shows to me that she has a lot of flexibility, but she knows her brand, she knows herself, and she's developing a story. So I think something that I'm consistently on artist about, I had a consultation last night and I was telling this artist from LA, like, it'll come with time, but you need to start somewhere and know where you're headed. Like, you should be thinking about putting things into a funnel. So I love the information that she gives. I love how confidently she gives it. And Yeah, I agree that it's funny. It almost seems juxtaposed, but just relax. That's something that I think I wish I would have heard myself say to myself in my own voice, like my whole career. Even last week, I was talking to my mom, and she was like, "I think you're overthinking it," and I'm like, "No, no, like I need to be present and analyzing my life." And then like 3 or 4 days later, I was like, "I'm thinking about this too much, though. Even if I'm not like overthinking the outcome, I could just let it go because I already know what's going on and what I don't like about this situation. I just need to move through it." So really encouraged and enjoyed that, but more encouraged to me by the amount of artists that I'm seeing like, okay, yeah, this is what I believe, or I need to just get on this wave.
But you know that parameters excuse is just some artist shit. And it's hilarious how people can turn very sensible things into these ridiculous excuses and justifications for not setting goals. Because who in their right mind is going to say, if I set a goal, I'm limiting myself, right? That sounds stupid. But when you tell someone, hey, create a 10-year plan, all you're doing is creating branding goals and specifying your vision for yourself. A lot of artists will say, well, I can't be defined. I can't be put in a box. No one's putting you in a box. You are defining yourself. You are figuring out who you are and what parts of you want to show to the world on a consistent basis, which becomes your branding. A lot of artists think that's a gimmick, but I think, rather than harp on that, I just want to get this clear. When people say that, it's not because they mean it. It's not because they're too artistic that they can't define themselves. It's because either they're lazy or they're scared or they're confused and they just don't want to admit it. And I think a lot of us artists have gone through that. I don't know if Doechii's gone through that. I don't know when she had that moment of clarity where she was just able to sit down and map out her career. Clearly it's working. She just won how many Grammys? So yeah, I personally think, and this can be good and bad, but either way, it will get you success. I see all these artists, and I wanted to do a whole podcast episode about this idea of industry plans, because people tend to look at artists who have really clear goals and very well-defined brands right out the gate as industry plans, because they're like, it's just things are just falling into place. Yeah, okay, that's how things work. When you get into the game and people finally see you because that plan you've been working hits that critical point where it just takes off because of your planning, a whole bunch of people are going to look at you crazy because they're like, well, I didn't see you struggle. But you never see anyone struggle. That's the whole point of social media. You don't see people who are living in obscurity. You see them once they succeed. So when they have their shit together, you're like, someone else must have done that. Maybe they had a team, but teams don't just come up with your vision for you. You have to do that first. So it can be, and I think another excuse is, I don't want to be a gimmicky ass rapper. So you just want to not have an identity. Everyone has an identity, for better or worse. Like I think of 6ix9ine, that his branding was great in terms of consistency. You knew exactly who he was. It was always that in every music video, every interview, every song, every album cover, every marketing plan. It was the same. It was consistent. And that's ultimately, I think, what hurt his career, but it's what propelled him into the spotlight at first. I guess a similar example would be 50 Cent, and people I guess a less legally problematic example. What am I saying? That's weed. No, weed's legal in a lot of places. Wiz Khalifa, obviously, it's always so consistent. And I personally, I don't manage artists anymore, but when I was working with artists more closely and feeling open to artist management and development, anytime we would have these branding meetings and someone would say, I just kind of just want to be, just a regular person, or like, I just kind of don't want to pigeonhole myself. I was like, I'm out. I can't. I finally learned my lesson. You can't just be out here like a etch a sketchboard and expect your brand to stick.
Yeah. Two things on this for me, because it seems super basic, like, oh, have a plan, but you would be surprised. I would say most people don't have a plan. Most artists that I run into don't have a plan. So I would say, number one, just understand that this plan can change. It's not set in stone. I'm sure, I don't know when that original clip was recorded, but I don't think it took 10 years. Like, it doesn't look like she's 10 years younger in that. And it looks like she's almost damn near the same age. So I don't think it takes 10 years. So things change as you get, access to more resources. You have some wins, some bigger wins. You might need to change your plan. Like, your end goal might change as you learn more about the industry and you learn more about yourself and what you really want to do. But it's important to have a plan and to check in with that. The second thing I would say is, if nothing you're doing today connects to the longer plan, like, you don't really have a plan. Like, you might have a goal, but you don't have a plan. Like, if you're waking up today and you don't know what to do, then you don't have a plan. So it needs to be what you're doing today, what you're doing next week, what you're doing next month has to connect to this longer plan to accomplish this longer term goal. I often see kind of a disconnect between, people thinking they have a plan, but it's really a goal with no ladder to get there. There's no roadmap to get there. So we wanted to bring this up because, it's basic, sounds basic. It's like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah. But in our experience, it looks like folks are nodding in agreement. Like, there really is no plan. So shout out to Doechii for record. I don't know when that was recorded. But obviously she's
I think it was like last year or like whenever she was entering in, to kind of like when her mixtapes or her random drops started, because that looks like the hair, like she was like wearing that style of weave, I feel like a year or two ago, or like right before she stopped, like right before her sobriety journey. So I don't feel like it's that long ago, but it seems like you said, like, she's sticking to the plan.
Yeah, I'm sure she's having more success than she thought, but she's putting in the work. She's definitely putting in the work. Super talented. I think I caught on super late to what Doechii was doing, but there's a lot of rappers. I don't really listen to too much rap anymore, but I can appreciate when people are good at what they do. Right? I may not listen to it day to day, but I can hear it and say, oh yeah, this person, has put in their 10,000 hours plus, and they're very, very good. Kendrick's like that for me. Like, I don't really listen to Kendrick like that, but I can, appreciate the art form and the thought that goes into what he does, and understand why people will put him, definitely in the top 5, but maybe when he's done, he's top 1 or 2, for some folks. So, but we can jump into the next topic. Erinn, you want to go next?
My topic comes from a comedian, Tassan Fields. He's Canadian, so I don't know. It depends on what world you dwell in as far as comedians. You may or may not have heard of him, but I think he's actually like super fun. He's somebody I've recently come across, but like now every time he's in my newsfeed, he's really funny. And I tend to find that people who are consistently funny are really intelligent. I don't think all comedians are intelligent, even though that's like a thing that people say, but I think consistent humor is a sign of intelligence. But he is Muslim, he's Canadian, he's Latino, but he's also a brown man. So he's been through, like, just his scope of life is really unique. He has a very unique lens. And so the interviewer is asking him, what do you do, like, when you get discouraged? How do you keep going? I think it's a super common question that gets asked to artists, athletes, whoever. But the way that he described his answer, I felt like really stuck with me, which is why I wanted to talk about it this morning. He said, I know when I'm playing basketball by myself, when I shoot the ball, whether I make it or miss it, I have to go get the rebound. And I was like, whoa. So that really stuck with me for a multitude of reasons, because he sits in a really unique place. He's not glorifying the win or underscoring the loss. He's just like, I'm just putting up shots. And that's something that Russell has said. That's something that my business partner and I say. It's a common trope, like, I'm putting up shots. Like, we consider ourselves Shaq and Penny. So we're just in the gym together. And I think that when you're not so precious with the outcomes, when you know that at the end of the day, you still got to wake up and stick to the plan, similar to what we just said about Doechii, I think that it puts you in a better mindset to continue versus looking at the result as an indicator of benefit or growth or purpose. I often tell people I want to quit, but I don't know where I would go. I'm just stuck. And the truth of the matter is, like, I've worked my way into the problem of I have to stay on this course. There's like actually nothing else that I can do. Like if I go to change industries as a brand new entrepreneur in a brand new industry in this day and age, I don't know how much money that I would make right away. Like it's a process in starting. And then if I, like jump into a whole new job, like I may have to go in entry level. Do you know what I'm saying? So it's like, even though I'm constantly adding to my repertoire, even expanding my offering from business, it's like at its core, I'm doing the same thing that I started out to do. And I think that it's important to have, I think I'd say guiding stars in the journey to remind you like, yo, you could just sit here and whine, or you could sit here and celebrate. I think there's a space and place for it all, but only momentarily. Like, you got to go get the rebound, big dog, because you're the only one who knows where to place the ball next, right? Like, there will be times where people are rebounding from you. If you put up enough shots and make enough goals, then people want to get on board with you. But you still have to be in the gym late and early, and they're not necessarily going to be there with you. So I thought this was a really good way to express how to continue, because he's not just saying, well, when I feel bad, I do this. He's like, regardless of good or bad, I'm doing the same thing. So what are y'all's thoughts?
Yeah. So I think in general, just like I've seen artists that don't have a plan, like most artists don't have a plan. I feel like most artists aren't putting up enough shots. Even with Big Ja, like Big Ja at the stage that he's at, he's successful. We still have a long way to go where we want to go. But I keep telling them, because we've gotten less active on socials, right? And every day that goes by, like we missed an opportunity. Like we don't get that time back. We missed an opportunity to take another shot, right? Every day, you're not putting out enough music, or you're not posting enough. You're not sharing your story enough. You do not get that time back. And that was an opportunity for you to get in front of someone new, right? Grow your fan base, or potentially get in front of your next team member or somebody that can invest in your career. You're losing time every single day. So when you don't have the plan, you don't shoot your shot that day's never coming back. All you can do is focus going forward and try to minimize the days that you miss going to the gym and getting your shots up. So please take your shot. I'm probably talking to myself at this time too. I don't, even though I feel like I've taken a lot of shots, probably didn't take enough. So, hopefully this wakes some people up and they start to do a self-assessment and say, yeah, you're right. I didn't take a shot. I didn't take a shot yesterday. Didn't plan on taking a shot today, but tomorrow I for damn sure going to get some more shots up. So, make that be the message that, if you don't take anything else from this podcast episode, get some more shots up.
I personally love the sports comparisons because for whatever reason, people understand those better. You talk about music, you talk about branding, you talk about consistency, and people just look at you like you're crazy. I got to do what? I'm not making a beat every day. I'm not writing a song every day. I'm not dropping an album every year. What are you talking about? I'm an artist. And then you start talking about sports, and everybody is praising the consistency of standout athletes, their commitment to practice. Oh, their resolve is crazy. They got the craziest habits. They're always practicing. They don't take any breaks from practicing. They don't party. They don't do it. Why is it so hard to understand that applies to everything? And my huge piece of advice, and I think it's underrated advice, whoever you are, if you're making beats, if you're writing songs, whatever, managing whatever you want to do in the music business, find ways to discipline yourself in other ways. Just build your life around consistency, and an easy way of doing that is habits. If you want to get fit, then work out consistently, no matter how you feel. If you're trying to learn a new language, practice every single day through some sort of structured method, and don't take breaks, because in the music business, that taking breaks seems like it's just this normalized thing for people. They're like, I just want to take a break. I want to be the biggest thing in my genre, and I'm the best. I'm a genius. I'm great. But yeah, I'm just gonna take the next 6 months off. Or I could go to the studio tonight, but nah. Someone's asking to buy a feature. I'm just not feeling it right now. Huh? All the people that you idolize, all the greats that you idolize, you know damn well you praise them for not doing what you're doing right now to yourself. So why do you not expect mediocre results when you have mediocre commitment?
I saw an interview recently with Austin Reeves of the Los Angeles Lakers, for those that aren't familiar. And he was talking about LeBron and his work ethic. And Austin had one goal. I don't know over what period of time, I can't remember, but he had one goal. He wanted to try to beat LeBron to the gym, because LeBron's known for getting there super early, getting his treatment, getting his shots up. And he just, for whatever reason, wasn't able to be. Every time he showed up earlier and earlier, he realized like Bron was there before him. So the people that really win at this long term, just have an obsession and a passion for this, and a dedication to learning. And if that's not in you, that's okay. But that means you're more on the hobby path. You're on the hobby path. That for the people that want this to be a career, they're obsessed with it. And you don't have to pull their arm, or twist their arm just to get them to do, some of the basics, or get them to, continuing with the analogy, get them to get their shots up. And that's okay. I think I often encourage people to, self-evaluation and be honest with yourself. What do you really want? And if it's not this, once you realize what it takes, figure it out. There's a lot of other stuff out there.
I think that's such an important point, Dame, because a lot of hobbyists will use ancillary clips from their favorites to justify a lack of results, but also a lack of effort. Because there is a interview clip going around with Sade right now, and she's like, I don't think that we always have to be around and present and just like outputting, right? And I would say two things to that. I think the era that she was in afforded her that luxury, but I also feel like the level of skill, the magnitude to the fact of how different she is, but also the practice of her art, I think warrants the opportunity for her to say something like that. But also she's a legend, right? She's a great, forever heralded in a multitude of museums, right? So I think that sometimes, and I've seen a lot of the artists who shared that. I've been around so many talented artists that I am a fan of, that I love what they're doing. I'm like, you have otherworldly talent. But they go through these spurts of motivation. And it's like, because motivation is so fickle, when you're unmotivated or when life's not doing well, and then you spiral into whatever, and then you're feeling everything in the world, and then you're just like really in your artist mode, you may go 2 years without doing much anything productive. And then you justify that by saying, oh, well, I at least recorded music. I just been storing it up. I was going through things. And again, I'm not taking any shots as somebody who deals with mental illness. And like, I'm literally last night well, this morning at like 5 a.m., was doing some work because I could have just done it yesterday, but I have been struggling with a lack of motivation for months, like months. And it's just getting to the point that like shit is just not getting done. And I had to have a conversation with myself at 5:30 this morning. Like, okay, my habits need to be revamped. And it's like tough for me because I have to really challenge myself because I'm changing cities so often. So then I just started thinking about in the last era of my life where I was motivated and more consistent, what 2 to 3 things were there that I can re-implement and stay consistent with. I'm not somebody who has a very consistent like morning routine, like a lot of entrepreneurs and things like that. It depends on what my schedule is, but there are things that need to happen every day for me to keep me on track. And when I surveyed this morning, I'm like, damn, I haven't done any of those 3 on any given day for months. So that like I'm getting the result of the actions that I'm taking, right? And so I think that there has to be a level of clarity, a level of self-accountability, but also an awareness of who you are and what you need. For years, people would be like, you got to wake up, you got to do this, you got to do this. And I could never adapt it. When I realized that there were things that I could consistently do, it doesn't have to be on the same schedule, but it's like there are certain things you got to have in place every night and every day. And if you do those, you win. So I just want to encourage people, like, this is not a conversation for people who enjoy this. This is a conversation for people who are obsessed. And again, as Dame said, like, this isn't for everybody. And I think people underscore how important it is to be obsessed with something, because it's like, why was I talking to myself at 5:30 in the morning? It's because I'm not liking the result that I'm getting. And I was up, and I don't like being up that late because I have to get up and do this in the morning as well. And then I was like, I'm just going to tell the guys I'm not feeling good. And I was like, that's not true. Get over yourself. Because it was a mental block. And I was like, nah, you're getting up. You put yourself in this predicament, finish that fucking email, and go to sleep for 2 hours. And then you're going to get up and podcast, and your routine is going to change. Do you know what I'm saying? And so it's like, that's because I'm obsessed with the idea of who I could be. And I want to continue to be obsessed with that idea because every day it makes me better, and who I am doesn't suffer from who I could be because I'm not obsessed enough or because I'm more idealistic than I am determined.
Well, here's what's so important about what you said is that you're having this inner dialogue where you're holding yourself accountable. I'll make this quick, and I'm sure all 3 of us can relate. When I was in artist management, artist development, that kind of thing, having to have that conversation, but not me convincing myself to be consistent and do what I'm supposed to do and what I said I was going to do, but doing that to someone else, having that conversation constantly, like, look, man, we said we were going to hit the road at 10 to get to the show for the sound check at 3 because the hotel check-in's at 12. Or no, we said we were going to drop the album tomorrow. We already have been rolling this out for the last 3 months. It's like, fuck, man, that's when you just walk away. That's when you know the whole situation is overcooked, fried to a crisp, because if a person doesn't have an inner voice holding them accountable, your voice isn't ever going to replace theirs. It's always going to be a fight. And so I think that inner voice, I think it goes without saying, if your inner voice is discouraging you from doing the things that you say you want to do, then that's a problem. That's a serious problem.
I think a lot of folks don't have an obsession for their craft. Sometimes I see an obsession for finding clips from popular, famous people that justify their laziness, clips taken out of context, the clips that don't explain all the different variables of why their situation is way different from your situation, whether it's a different time in music, whether they have access to different resources, a different skill set, whatever it is. You guys are amazing at finding these clips that get you comfortable in your laziness. I've seen so many. I didn't see the clip that Erinn was referring to. And is it true that Sade is the name of the group, not the person?
What?
No, it's her name. It's like it's a piece of her actual government name.
But I know that was random, like tangent. But I was just thinking of it.
I gotta look this
I
up,
saw
man.
something, and it had a hell like it. Had, I don't. It had a lot of people in the comments like, "What? You didn't know that?" Like, I'm gonna Google it really fast because at the time I didn't. It's Sade.
That just blew up my whole world if it's real. What?
Yeah, Sade is the name of the band, but I guess it's also.
Wait a minute, it's both. It's both.
It's both.
Everyone's right. It says Helen Folasade Adu. I don't know what the CB.
That's what I was. I thought it was a part of her middle name.
It
Yeah,
is,
so
but
it's
people
part of her
didn't
name.
name. I mean, like Van Halen is a band, but it's the guitarist. You know what I mean? So
Okay.
I guess it's like that. That's not so weird. Okay, everyone, calm down.
Yeah, didn't mean to derail it, but I'm glad we got to the bottom of that. But yeah, I mean, hopefully this podcast, we pride ourselves on sharing like actual experience. I mean, I think we need to do better at presenting it and making things seem more exciting because that makes people click and listen a little bit more. Because there's a lot of people just yelling on Instagram, just yelling terrible information. And you guys seem to gravitate towards it because it was yelled and screamed to you with a lot of passion. And I know we don't necessarily have those personalities on this platform, but what we're talking about comes from real experience. And it's not to say that we're right every time, but at least, speaking from my perspective, I've been in this since 2008. I've seen a lot of people come and go at this point. So I would think that my opinion and the things that I share come from a very real place and not just my own experience. I know that folks in the comments sometimes say, "Oh, that's just because of what happened to Funk Volume and blah, blah." Like I talk to artists every single day. Like even in my role today here at Two Lost, I probably spoke with 4 or 5 artists just yesterday with different situations, different types of music. So, please continue to stay tapped into what we're doing and we'll try to get better at screaming at you or whatever we got to do, thumbnails, names of the videos, whatever we got to do to get a little bit more reach. But hopefully we can save some years for you guys, whether that's years accelerating to get you to have a successful career or that's years, you're saving by realizing that this wasn't for you. Ultimately, that's why I started the MEC. I've said this many times before. And there have been some people that have come back to me and been like, "Hey, Dame, I really appreciate what you said because now I'm in real estate and I'm crushing it." And that's an amazing thing to me. And if you continue to do music on the side, that's wonderful. But I always say the last thing we need is more people pursuing music. It's an oversaturated space. Payne, let's go into your topic. I know we've talked about this before, but this young lady had a lot of engagement on her video about
A lot. This
about
is their most popular video, I think, on Reels.
leasing beats versus exclusives.
I said that artists need to stop leasing beats and instead find a producer that you work really well with and lock in. And the rebuttal I got was, "Oh, I can't afford that." You guys need to understand that this music industry is not for the broke. And I say this respectfully. Personally, I would prefer to spend a little bit more on a beat that I can do anything with and it's mine, as opposed to spending, a fraction of that on a lease beat and 10 other people have that same beat. And remember when I was telling you guys about bartering, the exchange of services? This is a perfect example of when bartering would be valuable. It takes a lot of money to put behind a music career. All I'm saying is you got to think long term.
Is her name Ghost Right Her?
Yeah, her real name is Fabiola, but yeah, her Instagram is ghost_right her, WRITE.
Okay, we could take her off the screen.
And she's a social media manager. There are some comments that I do want to talk about that are interesting, but
and she has no time for you brokies. So if you're broke, Erinn, first reaction to what she was saying.
I don't like when people make definitive statements about the way that people build their business, especially when there's so many um, so many things proven in opposition to what she's saying. Like if you're saying don't just think you have to do it this way. Super rock with that because I'm big on that. I'm like, there are so many ways to win. There are so many ways to make money. There are so many ways to build a business. But it's almost like because she makes such a definitive statement at the beginning, it's hard for me to take anything that she says seriously after that because it almost feels like she refutes herself. So she says, lock in with a producer. And then she says, I would rather have a beat that I can do anything with and spend a little bit of money. When I hear lock in with a producer versus lease beats, I hear work with a producer who's going to give you free or severely discounted beats as y'all work together. So then when she said that, I'm like, oh, she may not mean lock in with a specific producer. She means just get your music produced so that you own it. But again, like there's a million ways to slice the business. I've never gotten a sync off of leased beats, but I've still seen leased beats generate revenue, notoriety, signings, all sorts of things like that, and can be part of a actually really robust business model, especially if you know what you're doing. So I felt like that was like really interesting. I think that she does say some things towards the end that I'm like, I don't necessarily disagree with that. I also don't disagree with like locking in with a producer, but I also know several examples of people who lock in with producers and they're like, hey bro, you record on all of these beats, but I still have them up on my BeatStars. So like, I'm giving you free access to these, but if somebody wants to buy an exclusive, we got to take this down or whatever. And it's like they're locked in, but part of the reason that the producer is open, sometimes the producer is building the beat specifically for that artist, still putting it up on YouTube, BeatStars, whatever, because he's like, I'm building with you, I'm helping you develop your sound, somewhat of like an A&R situation that they have, but it's still being leased. So I don't know. I just think there's a million ways to win. She has a lot of emphasis that I'm wondering where it's coming from. Like, what's the reason of the point that she's making? And I don't laugh to dismiss her because it's like we just have different opinions on this. I'm not saying that she's not valid, but I think the way that she put it, and then to me when I started going through the comments, I was a little thrown off how strong she was coming to people who had intelligible disagreements, but I also was floored by the amount of people that you could see have no motion who agreed with it. So then it made me feel even more justified in being like, what? Because you could tell that there's so many people who were like, yeah, that's what I'm on, but I don't know. And I don't understand the affordability thing. You're limited by your own beliefs or lack thereof. So like every excuse that she puts in there, I'm just like, why are you even thinking like that? Just try.
Payne, definitely want to get your perspective on this, and your business is, you're in every space, right? You lease beats, you do exclusives, you lock in with people. So what's your immediate response to what she was saying?
I guess I just want to know what her angle is. Like Erin's saying, there's an angle because she's really emphatic about this belief, and it's such a hard line belief that has been proven disproven a million times. Anytime someone makes absolutist statements, my guard automatically goes up. And in this instance, saying the music business is not for the broke, that's one absolutely absolutist statement. It's been proven time and time again that it's not for the people. It's not for the rich. I mean, it's owned by the rich, but not every artist is a Lil Mabu. You know what I mean? Like that's really just. Are we saying that every successful producer and every successful rapper came from money? That's not true. Is a willingness to invest sometimes necessary? Absolutely. Sure. But I just, that statement already kind of poisoned the well for me. And then the second thing she said that poisoned the well for me was that she doesn't want to lease beats. She wants a beat that she can do anything with. But let's be perfectly honest. You're talking about a buyout. You're talking about getting every single copyright transferred from the producer to you, which is just not typical. So you can't
I don't think she was. I don't think she was suggesting that.
Well, okay, but then that's the
I didn't
problem,
hear that.
because what she was saying doesn't reflect the reality of intellectual property laws. My personal feeling about this, and sorry, Dame, you can finish your thought, because I think it's an interesting thought, is that she's just doubling down on something because it already got engagement. Because she started the video off by saying, I posted this, and a lot of people responded by saying this. Okay, so she already knew it was getting engagement. That's why she posted it. But sorry, what were you going to say? I wanted to flesh that out.
No, I just didn't hear that in her, that she was suggesting like a buyout where, you know, the producer no longer has any rights to anything. What I heard was just the being allowed the flexibility, you know, to do, because leasing beats, I'm a fan of leasing beats if that's what you know, if that's where you're at in your career, right? I'll even connect it to the Doechii conversation, right? It's like your plan, like where are you at now? Where do you want to be? You know, you might start out in a space where you have to lease beats because that's where you're at from a financial standpoint. But then as you go in your journey, you might meet somebody like Payne that is so impressed with what you do that he wants to lock in with you and help you really develop your sound. If I was an artist, I would prefer, or what I would suggest, if you do have somebody like Payne that is dope at what he does and loves what you do, like to build together. Because I think one of the biggest problems in music with independent artists, and I've said this before, is the lack of consistency. And I also talked about this with Six, Logic's producer. You know, having somebody that you've locked in with prevents the lack of consistency in the quality of your music. Like when you're jumping around from producer to producer, you know, I think that, and you're not developing trust with that producer, and that producer is giving you feedback, you're not getting that because you're jumping from producer to producer. That's what I think leads to, one of the reasons that leads to the lack of consistency in the quality of your music. So if I could just pick, you know, having unlimited resources or whatever, access to everything, I would pick locking in with somebody that you develop and grow together with. But a lot of people don't have that out the gate. Most people don't have that out the gate. I understand that. So you have to start with leasing beats. So as you're putting your plan together, like, okay, I'm starting here, but as I'm bootstrapping my business, as I have a job on the side and I'm making money, I can put this much aside for beats at this point in time. And then I start to lease beats, right? And then as your music has some more success, then maybe you start, you know, purchasing beats or doing exclusive licenses. And it's really just, that's the plan that's necessary. And that's the commitment to the plan that's necessary for you to ultimately have success in music. So I think we would all have the same opinion on this video, in the sense that there's what Erinn said. There's no one way to do this. And it does suck that she just is so entrenched in, but it's an opinion at the end of the day. And maybe that's just the way that she prefers, but I just know that not everybody's in that position.
No, the only reason I said what I said was because she said she distinguished between beat leasing and exclusive beats, in the regard that if you have an exclusive beat, you can do anything, quote, anything, unquote, with that beat. And so I'm thinking, wait a minute, what can't you do with a lease that you can do with an exclusive? And then I'm thinking, you must think that you own it entirely, every element of that, the intellectual property you own. So therefore, you can do anything. You can resell it. You can sync it without the producer signing off on it. You can transfer that ownership to a label. You can do what you can get radio play. You can perform. You don't have to take into account the producer's input or their equity in the song. And that's, to me, problematic. It just makes me think, given how vague, it was like simultaneously vague and incredibly specific and emphatic. That just makes me think, and no disrespect, that she doesn't fully understand, or she hasn't fully fleshed out that idea in her.
It sounded like she's pretty intelligent and she probably has experience in it. I I wouldn't then go jump to think that she believes that she can literally do anything with the beat. I think, but you do have, once you have a producer agreement in place and you're kind of on the same page, you do have more flexibility in what you can do with the music, whether it's content ID or it's easier with sync placement. I know you can get sync placements with lease beats, but just a bunch of other people, hearing a bunch of other people on your beat, even if you don't hear it, just knowing that a bunch of other people have it. I know sometimes throws artists off, but again, that might be where you're at. You can only afford lease beats at this point, and that's what you use to get your reps in and to get your shots up, to tie it back into Erinn's topic.
Yeah, I just personally don't want people looking at lease beats as practice. It's a song. You're making a song. It's still a piece of intellectual property. And there have been viral songs, hit songs made off of leased beats. Some of those hit songs remain leased. I think the majority of them end up becoming exclusive. And Leave Me Alone, Old Town Road, Panda. I'm trying to think of She Make It Clap. That one remained a lease, which was interesting. That's what made that case particularly unique. And it kind of shows you that things in the music business are becoming a little more flexible. I think ultimately it shows you that if the labels see some money, they're gonna figure out a way to make it work. If the money's already there and they just want to grab at it. But the top selling rap song of this year of 2025 is Tweaker. That beat wasn't even leased. That beat was just taken off of a platform, and the producer's tag, the Get Your Beats Now, Purchase Your Beats Now tag is still on that track, and it got handled, but it blew up and was everywhere before it was even legally licensed or owned by the entity that released it, and it got handled. The producers aren't going on a complaint campaign. They're happy. Everything got handled. That's just how the music business works. So I think, so you're as Erinn said, there are a million counter examples to what she's saying. And so I'm wary of anyone making these absolutist statements, telling people what to do.
You're definitely right. I shouldn't have said practice, although, all the music you make in the beginning is practice to me. And if if you're using the excuse, I don't have anybody sending me beats, you got to go to the least beats market. But yeah, I just don't want anybody making excuses or why they can't create. Hopefully that's a common theme that you hear in this episode. But does anybody else has anything else to add to this young lady's opinion before I go on a quick rant and we get up out of here?
I would say this, especially in the comment section. When you're looking at all the people who are emphatically agreeing with someone who's pushing an absolutist point, or you're looking at people who are making really strong statements that might seem a little too extreme, especially when they're telling you what to do and not being flexible, saying you need to do this, do this, do this, do that. Don't do that, do this. For God's sake, please just click on their name, see what they're doing. Because a lot of the artists, as Erinn said, a lot of the artists don't even have music up on streaming platforms. And if they do, they're not doing it for a living. And I'm not saying their opinions aren't valid, but, and maybe I'm an asshole for this, if you've never had a music career where you've made a living off of music and you're telling other producers, other artists how to make a living off music in these extreme terms as though you're an authority, what you are doing is at worst incredibly careless and childish, or at best incredibly careless and childish, or at worst just fraud. And unfortunately, the internet, these comment sections, these forums, they become echo chambers for terrible ideas, and people take that shit at face value. Stop taking shit at face value.
I'm just now looking at her bio, which is funny because I was clicking on other people's stuff from that post. I'm not going to mention her employer, but legitimate company, like very legitimate Black owned company. The guy who owns the company has mentored me a lot since I moved to Nashville. Like, yeah, so it's like she's getting really quality. In fact, I spoke to her company. I don't know if she was working there when I spoke at her company, but they do a lot of personal development, a lot of intentional education of their staff, even if it's not their department, because they're like, no, 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 everybody here is going to know this. So I'm kind of just surprised by this, knowing the business model of this company, because it's 4 companies in one and they do all sorts of things. This just proves to me, this is wild. This proves to me, though, that you never know, like, regardless of where people are plugged in. And I'm not saying she's wrong. I don't want to even mistake that. I'm not saying she's wrong. I'm just saying she's shouting and running in a direction that I wouldn't necessarily say she should shout and run. You know what I'm saying? It's like, especially because respectfully, she's a social media manager. So it's like the reps that will be required for me to be like, oh, okay, you know, like it's like when Teron Thomas says something, I'm just like, I don't necessarily agree with that, but he's like one Grammys and like, what, you know what I'm saying? Like Ray Daniels says something, I don't necessarily agree with that, but they have the reps to give them that positioning.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just think this is just a little bit weird. And again, it doesn't make me agree with them more, because I don't think celebrity or anything like that should be like, well, I'm agree. Like when people emphatically agree with Russ, I'm like, I definitely disagree with that. But I just think it makes it harder for me to like take this on, knowing that she's a social media manager. She's a copywriter. I was thinking she was like a writer, as in like songwriter. So I don't know. Not discrediting her, but this just kind of changes it up a little bit for me.
Yeah, I mean, she might be both. I mean, I think artists typically want a very specific answer, right? And the answer is always in the music industry, for the most part, is like, it depends. You know, we hear even on this podcast, the different perspectives we have on things. We don't agree on things. You know, even Ray Daniels and I, like we butt heads a lot, not necessarily butt heads, but we have different opinions on a lot of different things. And you'll find that with very experienced people in the music industry. That's why it's so important to have patience and learn, right? The answer is not always going to be easy. And I know you want this you just want to be told exactly what to do and go about your day. You don't want to listen to the full context or the full possibilities so you can apply what makes sense to what you're doing. And I get that, but slow down, take your time, because it's not going to always be just something that's spoon fed to you and you got it and you're like, boom. So yeah, the last thing I wanted to quickly rant about, you know, as people know, I work with Big Job. Hopefully we have a big year this year. But there's a lot of people that reach out to us that want to get on the team, right? And I think that goes with any, you know, successful team. There's people that want to be a part of it. And I get it for sure. Not saying we're not going to add to our team, because we definitely have expanded the team. We've needed new writers, new producers. The company needs to expand, but I think oftentimes it's people that just kind of want to cheat the process and jump on something that's already moving without having like that much value to add. Because then I go to their page, they're not moving at all. So you have to build your own team. You know, you have to start building momentum. You know, Ja wasn't always in the space that he was in. You know, 5 years ago, it was a bunch of cats that just shot for each other. And that's how everybody started building their own individual platforms. So he wasn't always in the space that he was in. So, you know, look around you, who's dedicated, who can put forth the same level of commitment, who's dedicated to their craft, getting better and better. And, you know, if you can't find those people in your like physical community in your city, you know, maybe you might have to turn online and start building relationships and, you know, making content remotely. But you can latch on to teams that are already moved, but you have to be very, very, very good at what you do and bring something to their team that they don't really have yet. and you might need to come and do some work for free or below what you typically get paid to kind of prove yourself. So there are ways to be attached to things that are already moving. But I would find your team and see, start building momentum and stop trying to get Ja to tag you and stuff and help your momentum, because we need help too. We need valuable members to our team. And if you haven't put in the work to be that yet, then don't reach out, because it looks crazy when it's like, hey, put me in a sketch. Like, why? You're not even, I look on your page, you don't really have that many videos, and the videos you do have wouldn't even qualify to be on Tubi. Like, that's how bad some of the acting is. You're not even dedicated to your craft. Like, why would he put you in his sketches? So I don't know if you guys have anything to add to that, but I just wanted to get
it's
that
crazy to if you want to join a team, it's crazy to lead with anything but value. And a lot of times people lead with, it's like, do me a favor and do me a favor. It's the craziest way to network with somebody. If I really want to get in with someone, like if I'm walking down the street and Tizo Touchdown's walking towards me, I'm not going to be like, oh man, hey, I love your music. Do me a favor, give me your email address, pay for my beats, and put me on. Huh? But that's the type of mentality people have. They're like, I really want to join this team. So rather than saying, hey, I have this particular skill set, I'm such a fan, I know exactly what your aesthetic is, I know what your trajectory is, and I know of ways that I can enhance that. Here's a specific way, let me show you. I'm not going to sit here and tell you about it. I'm going to show you what I can do because I'm leading with value. What do you think? Because at that point, you become a valuable part of a team that's already winning. You're going to make money. You're going to get your recognition. You see how they move. Like, it's Dame and Ja. They're not going to do bad business. So why would I contact John and be like, put me on? I need my credit. I need to get paid. People contact me all the time. They're like, give me an opportunity. I want to get paid too. Or the craziest shit I get is producers contacting me saying, hey, I just started getting into online beat sales. I got a business proposal for you. What if I sent you my beats? You could sell them for me and you take 50%. Or why don't I just continue making my own fucking beats, selling them and getting 100%? That doesn't make any sense. That, like, this type of networking is so backwards. And people wonder why. Those are the people that turn around and say, oh, the industry's gatekeeping. People are hating on me. People don't want to let a new person in. Shut the fuck up.
Yeah, every day I'm more aware of why so many businesses fail, because it's like so many people just start businesses and don't have it's cool if you start and you don't know what's going on. I started my first business when I was 12. I definitely didn't know what was going on, but there was a level of study that I had, right? Like, and I think that's another part of my obsession, or people who are obsessed in general. We study. And I'm not just talking about sitting on TikTok and letting your brain rot because you keep refreshing your news feed and calling it studying. I'm talking about, like, even for myself now, I'm kind of surprised a lot of times when I get into, like, I had multiple, like, new client meetings with this week, like potential new clients. And as I was talking to them, I was even surprised some of the stuff I was saying. I was like, well, damn, I wonder what book I got that from. Or like, oh, when did that get in there? I'm like, oh, I actually really know this really well. Do you know what I'm saying? But it's just because as you continue to input, I think that's like when people reach out to me too, like with Dave, I'm wondering, like, if somebody were to reach out to you saying the same thing, would you be like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense? Do you know what I'm saying? And I try to ask people that. I'm like, well, how would you want to approach you? And they still don't get it. But a lot of times, especially, I guess because we're in the creative field, I'm like, hey, tell me what your hard skills are. People all the time are like, I just love what you're doing. I want to work with you. So I'll be like, where, how, and in what capacity? And then they're like, I don't know anything that you're doing.
They put it on you. They're like, what do you need? It's like, so you're asking me to do the work for you?
Literally.
So that I can bring you in and I don't even know you? That's so weird.
And I'm like very intentional about like vetting people who are around me, just period. I'm not even talking about people who work with me, for me. I'm talking about friends, any type of person who's spending regular time with me. If you are around me, you're going to see the real me. And I can't just be giving that to everybody because you don't know how to treat it. Like, this is a valuable commodity, and my space and time is valuable, even if you're just interning. So I need to rock with you. And I think that's just like, people don't take enough steps back to say what they can do or think about the hard skills that they have. And the more, even when I see like corporate people, they're like, man, I'm just ready to get out of this corporate job. I want to do what you do. And I'm like, what are your hard skills? And they can't tell me any. I'm like, damn, like, it's the wild, wild west out here, even when corporate people don't really have anything. Like, you should have translatable skills regardless of industry. I can run down 10 things that I can do for you, even if you want me to come be a medical billing agent. Do you know what I'm saying? Because it's just like there's certain hard skills that come into play when you're dealing with human beings. So I think that's an important thing. But I also think a lot of self-reflection to say, like, if I get put on a team that has a pace or a level of notoriety that I enjoy, can I keep up with that? No. The truth of the matter is, no. You really can't run with me, big dog. I promise you. I know you think it's just all vibes over here. I know it. That's why people hit me, because they just be like, yeah, Erinn be vibing. She's herself for a living. She really enjoys life. Those things are very true, but also we work on this side. And I just think that a lot of people don't know how to handle that and don't understand the bandwidth. What they're looking for is ease and excitement, and they want to be parallel or adjacent to something that's great. I'm not shouting you out. I'm not helping you out. You're coming to help me, and that may not come with any applause aside from genuine gratitude behind the stage.
Just a couple of suggestions for people that are looking to join an existing team. I've said before that, just following people on information, just following people on social media, you can find out a lot of information about how you could potentially add value to what they're doing. So, for example, we're working on a reality boxing show, and we actually made the announcement. And then after that, a few people reached out. Like, there was somebody that I think makes custom boxing gloves that reached out and said, hey, if you guys need some custom boxing gloves for the show, like, that makes sense. That I'm obviously going to at least have that conversation and see where that goes. If you got access to a gym where we can film at, that doesn't put you on the team just because you soft tossed like one thing that helped us out, but that's the start of a relationship that can build. So follow people on social media. They will tell you exactly how you might be able to tune in and or tap in and add value to what they're doing, because we're always posting what we're doing. Right now we're shooting The Lesbian Homie. We announced when we started that. Maybe if you're in LA, if you have some locations, because we don't have a ton of money. This isn't HBO. We're not guerrilla shooting, but we still don't have like crazy budgets. So maybe there's some locations that you have access to. And that at least starts the conversation, because most people we're not even going to reply to, because there's so many people, just looking for a shortcut. But figure out where you can add value, and then those opportunities will present themselves if you just follow people online.
Absolutely. And get your music out. The thing that when we were talking about the No Beat Leasing video, the thing that really stood out was one comment where someone said, yeah, I had to redo, she was an artist, I had to redo my whole plan or something. Basically, she took all her music down from the platforms just because it was leased. And I think, who told you to take your music down? What idea got in your head? So anyway, I wouldn't suggest that. I suggest you do the opposite and get your music up. And you can do that for free for 3 months. You can get free premium music distribution. Go to twolost.com, use the code MEC, sign up, get music up, schedule it, plan a rollout, learn how these systems work, and build a fan base. You can't really build a fan base as a musician without fans liking your music. And so that entails getting music out there on the platforms that consumers are actually searching. I think that's pretty clear. Hopefully that helps. MEC is the code. twolost.com is the website to sign up. We appreciate you tuning in, and we will be back same time, same place next time. Peace.
Erinn, I'm not sure what happened to your thing, but But I can you please, like, because I know it's not easy for Payne, like when there's issues